Previously, what happened in the Uncanny Counterpart 1. Mun becomes a counter and starts hunting evil spirits with the rest of his team. Soon he realizes that his parents were murdered by an evil spirit named Jeong-sin. And now he is all set to take revenge on him. Whereas Mo-tak starts to regain his memory and assists Kim in finding Yeong-nim's dead body, which can help them to understand how Mun's father, Gwan, and Mo-tak were related. Mun runs into Sin down the alleyway. He is confident that he'll get the upper hand as he sees the territory forming around him. Unfortunately, he is knocked down pretty easily. And as Jeong-sin is about to kill him, Kim and the other counters show up and save him. Mun's wounds are pretty bad, but Mayok manages to heal them. Later, as he wakes up, he realizes that he has the ability to manipulate the territories, which could give them the edge in the fight to come. Kim informs Mo-tak that Yeong-nim's blood sample has gone missing, and Chief Choi seems to be responsible for it. With the police coercing Shin and his cronies, an enraged Mo-tak decides to take action. It's the day when Shin is about to announce his presidency. But it didn't go as smoothly as he planned it to. The counters hijack the backstage area. And just as he is about to make the announcement, Mun and Mo-tak show off a video of the waste dump live on air, whereas Hannah dumps wastewater on his head. The counters hurry backstage and continue their shenanigans. Later, we see the counters begin questioned by an inspector in Young for meddling in human affairs. She gives a number of different warnings to each counter. Although all of them being let off the hook, Wee-jin speaks up and decides that Mun should be dismissed as a counter. She decides to take away Mun's power, as Jeong-sin has learned about the territories because of him and he has occasionally exhibited the urge to murder. He refuses to accept this though and asks for another chance. What Wee-jin argues, and just like that, his powers are taken away. Hannah is tasked with taking away his memories, but she's unable to do this though, so Jang-mol takes over and completes the task. Mun wakes up and goes to school on his crutches like normal. Suddenly, Jeong-sin's death news spreads over the internet and shocks the counters. Mo-tak heads out with Kim to see his dead body, but he sees Mun standing there. It turns out Jang-mol didn't actually erase all of his memories. Kim brings the counters into the autopsy room and together they come to the conclusion that they've staged the whole thing for the pure purpose of raising Shin's profile. Months later, she arrests the Jew brothers for the attempted murder of Mo-tak. Shin decides to run for the presidency and announces this on the news in front of everyone. That evening, Mun is grabbed and taken by a bunch of thugs. The counters are informed about his condition, and Jeong-sin tells them to come if they want to save him. As they arrive, they're immediately blindsided by demons who attack Mayok first. A tense fight breaks out as Hannah and Mo-tak are surrounded by other evils, whereas a demon throws Mayok on the floor and immediately sends her into a coma. Meanwhile, Mo-tak is brutally beaten down. Hannah attempts to put Jeong-sin in an armbar, but Hyang-hee pulls her off. With all hope lost, a green spirit ball suddenly finds its way into Mun's body, which makes him able to communicate with Wei-jin. He asks her to ascend inside him just once, so that he can save everyone. Just as Jeong-sin lights the place up and lets it burn, Wei-jin suddenly ascends into Mun's body. In the meantime, the entire building blows up and Shin thinks that everyone is dead. But Mun protected everyone. Mayok's condition is pretty bad because of a nasty brain injury. Later, Mun visits Young, and thanks to his heroics, he has been given another chance of being a counter. Luckily, Mayok is healed and the counters return to the noodle bar, where Mo-tak admits that he's got half of his memories back, but he is unable to piece together the fragments of what happened after being stabbed. So Hannah agrees to help him, offering to dive into his subconscious mind. She sees the fragments of his past, including a registration plate. We are shown the moment when Gwan meets him. Another fragment shows Mo-tak telling Suryeon not to be a wuss. Then he receives a call from a person that has evidence related to Yeong-nim's case. With that, Mo-tak comes back to the present and is excited to get all of his memories back. He quickly calls Kim and admits that he remembers everything that happened between them, including his marriage proposal. He asks to meet up for a date, but unfortunately, when he gets there, he finds Kim's face covered in blood. He rushes her to the hospital, but things look really bleak for her future. And the worst happens when he spots her spirit leaving her body. After her funeral, Mo-tak reveals that he saw her last memory and she was killed by a detective because he saw a golden watch on the wrist of the murdered. That watch is given to only those who have served for over 20 years. He obtains some papers for Hanul, through which the counters realize that Kim has been killed because she discovered the illegal funding of 5 billion won channel through Shin's account, so they concoct a plan to steal the money and give it back to the people. Thankfully, the spirits decide not to interject in this upcoming mission. The plans go ahead and Mayok places trackers under Shin's goons' cars. Jae-mol makes his move too and meets Shin for dinner. He takes the bait and agrees to show his 5 billion won. The Ju brothers are out of the jail now, and Chang-Ju methodically clears out the bank. Down in the parking lot, the counters knock out the driver and seize the suitcases for themselves. While is this going on, Chang-Ju heads down to the reservoir and picks up the yellow suitcase that happens to be something related to Yang Nim. The counters track down Chang-Ju, who is trying to burn it. They get the suitcase, and in private, they open it and find Yang Nim's dead body, decomposed to such a degree that it's just a skeleton now. Shin heads back to his meeting with Jang Mo. He opens his suitcases and finds water bottles inside them. With the trio being distracted, Jang Mo collects some cups to get Shin's DNA. As he takes his leave, they immediately turn on each other. However, the counter has luck on its side thanks to its DNA sample of Shin. It turns out the DNA samples on Yang Nim's body match with Shin and Hang Gyu. The police arrive to arrest them. As Shin walks out of the building, Mun approaches him and promises to make him pay for what he did. Chang Sin visits Jiadi Children's Center and meets a man who gave him the scar on his head. He tries to kill him, but Chang Sin telepathically turns the shotgun on him and fires him. As a consequence of this, we see him consuming the man's spirit and becoming stronger. With him being powerful, the spirits brief the counters that now he is unstoppable and can even heal himself like Mayok. That spells bad news for Mun, who learns that his parents will perish after a month and Chang Sin will become even stronger. The only way to stop him is to create a barrier, but that barrier can harm the counters as well. Later, Motak finds dashcam footage that could help him to find Kim's murderer. He watches it over and over again, but the angle is difficult to detect the person, so he seeks out Hanwell's help. And with his help, they are able to record Choi telling the detective to destroy the evidence. It turns out that Choi was the one who killed her. Back at the children's home, Chang Sin decides to leave, but the counters show up. The group conjure up their barrier, while Mun walks towards him. He beats him down to the ground and tries to summon the evil spirit. But a kid suddenly catches him completely off guard and asks him to let the man go. Meanwhile, Chang Sin points a gun to his head and shoots himself. Mun tries to awaken his spirit, but all in vain. His spirit curdles into air and disappears. Later, Weijin reveals that his spirit was able to survive while his body has passed away. What's even worse is that it has entered into Shin's body, who has been taken to hospital because he tried to commit suicide. Whereas Hang Ju takes the responsibility of the murder and saves Shin. Elsewhere, Mun bumps into Hyokyu and sees the vision that Chang Sin has entered into his father's body. The counters manage to get Ta Sin behind the bars, and now their next target is Shin. That evening, they create a barrier and Mun heads inside to get him. But it turns out Shin and Hyeonghoi already knew about their plan from the start and ambush them. She attacks Hana and snaps her staff in half. With that, the barrier disappears and Mun is smashed over the head with a rock. But he controls his powers and manages to raise some rocks around him. As Motak arrives to help him, Hana and Hyeon-Hu cross paths. She eventually summons the spirit out of her, while Shin manages to slip away. But Mayok gets injured during the fight, so Jang Mo calls another counter, Jong-gu, to heal her. He marvels at his skills as he does his best to heal her. The next day, Mun takes passed out Hyekyu to the bar. Mayok takes care of him while the rest head out to hunt Shin. But as they arrive, they learn that he has returned to his comatose state, and it turns out that the spirit entered Hyekyu. He tries to attack Mayok, but the counters arrive just in time to save her. The spirit returned to Shin's body. Motak and Jong-gu are there waiting though, but despite both working together, they are quickly overpowered by him. Unfortunately, Jong-gu is impaled by Shin's dagger and his spirit is consumed by Mun, which shows that he is actually a doorway between Young and the real world. And Jong-gu has ascended to Young. Later, the group heads off to the construction site where Shin happens to be, and it's time for the real fight. He starts to shrug them off one by one and eventually turns his attention to Mun. He breaks his leg and smacks him in the face. However, Mun is able to attack him with rocks. Shin tries to distract him by turning into his mom, but finally Mun draws the evil spirit out. He passes out and arrives in Young and finds out that his parents' spirits are safe and he'll be able to see them. Chung Sin appears, and at last he is blasted through the doorway into his watery grave. Mun finally meets his parents, who eventually realize him, and we get to see an emotional reunion. Ms. Jang hands over the video evidence, which proves that Yang Nim was killed by Shin, and he is immediately arrested. In court, everyone gathers, and after hearing Chang Sin's voice recorder, the judge passes Shin's guilty sentence. With that, everyone is relieved. 1 month has passed, and the counters continue their job of catching the evil spirits throughout the country. And with that, today's recap comes to an end. We hope you enjoyed this mystery and fantasy Korean show. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.